All right, so get this. We're diving into uh, a story that should make every listener think twice before taking their car to just any mechanic.
Oh, this is going to be good.
Yeah, so picture this. You're being a good son or daughter.
Mm.
Take your 80-year-old mom to the shop to get her car fixed. Just trying to be helpful.
Right.
And then, bam, she's stranded in the blazing Florida heat, 90 degrees easy because the mechanic didn't actually fix the problem.
Oh, man, that's terrible, especially with an elderly parent. It's not just an inconvenience at that point.
No, it's straight up dangerous, and that's just the beginning of this whole saga.
Oh, boy.
This deep dive is based on a complaint filed with the Better Business Bureau against a place called City Garage down in Lakeland, Florida. And hold on to your hats, because we also got our hands on a letter from the state of Florida saying City Garage broke the law.
Whoa, okay, so we're dealing with some serious stuff here.
We are, and it really highlights why it's so important for everyone out there listening to understand their rights as a consumer, especially when it comes to something as essential and potentially as pricey as car repairs.
Absolutely, knowledge is power in these situations.
For sure. So let's break down what went down, according to the customer who filed a complaint. Their mom's car was having idling issues. Like that rough, shaky thing when you're stopped at a light.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean.
So they took it to City Garage, shelled out a whopping $700 to get it fixed, and you can probably guess what happened next.
It broke down again.
Bingo. The car conked out, leaving mom stranded in that brutal Florida sun.
Man, that's just adding insult to injury.
Exactly. And the customer is claiming that City Garage really messed up here. They're accusing them of a few things.
Like what?
Well, first they say City Garage misdiagnosed the problem in the first place.
Okay, that's a big one.
Second, they allege that City Garage put in a used alternator without even telling the customer. And get this, the person advising them about the repairs was apparently the shop's bookkeeper, Jacob.
Hold on, a bookkeeper giving car repair advice? That's like getting legal advice from a barista.
Yeah, it's definitely raising some eyebrows.
It makes you wonder if they're cutting corners in other areas, too.
Yeah. Now, to be fair to City Garage, they didn't just sit back and take these accusations. They fired back with their own side of the story, saying they offered to look at the issue again.
Okay, so they were willing to at least take another look.
Right, and they emphasized that the repair was done by a certified mechanic. So from their perspective, the customer's claims are totally bogus. They even said they offered to stand behind their work.
That's interesting because standing behind their work, it's pretty vague, doesn't necessarily mean they were offering a free fix.
You hit the nail on the head, and according to the complaint, City Garage actually wanted more money to fix the problem that they allegedly caused in the first place.
So much for standing behind their work.
Right. And here's another twist. The customer pointed out that there's no written warranty on the invoice.
Ooh, that's a huge red flag.
Isn't it? Because without that written warranty, it basically becomes a he said, she said situation.
Exactly. There's nothing legally binding outlining what City Garage is obligated to do if the repair fails or if the parts they used are faulty.
And to make things even more interesting, another mechanic, a totally independent one, reviewed the work City Garage did, and guess what?
They found something wrong.
Big time. This mechanic found some major issues with how that alternator was installed, which suggests that whoever did the job at City Garage might not have been as competent as they claim.
Oh, man. That's not a good look for them. If they're saying they have certified mechanics, but another mechanic finds glaring issues with their work, it really makes you question their whole operation.
It does. And here's where things get even juicier.
Yeah.
The state of Florida stepped in and sent City Garage a very strongly worded letter saying they violated the Motor Vehicle Repair Act, the law that's supposed to protect consumers when they get their cars fixed.
Yeah, I've heard of that one. So before we get into the nitty-gritty of what City Garage supposedly did wrong, maybe we should give our listeners a quick rundown of what an alternator even is and why it's so important.
That's a great idea because not everyone's a car expert.
Right. So basically, the alternator is like the heart of your car's electrical system. It keeps your battery charged and powers all the essential electrical stuff, like your headlights, radio, even your power windows.
So without a working alternator, your car is pretty much a brick.
Pretty much. And that's why getting a used alternator without knowing it would be a huge deal.
Especially if they try to charge you full price for it. So let's get back to that letter from the state of Florida. What exactly did they say City Garage did wrong?
Well, the letter says City Garage didn't provide complete and accurate information on the estimate and invoice, which is a big no-no according to the Florida Motor Vehicle Repair Act. This law is there to protect consumers, by making sure they have clear written documentation about the repairs the parts used and, of course, any warranties that apply.
So basically, transparency is key.
You got it. And that brings us right back to that whole used alternator issue.
Okay, I'm starting to see how it all connects.
Hmm.
But how does the missing warranty play into this?
Well, that's where it gets really interesting. So remember how the customer said they weren't told about that used alternator? Well, under Florida law, using a used part without telling the customer in writing on the invoice, that's a big no-no. It's straight up illegal.
So that's where the missing warranty comes back to bite them. If they didn't know the alternator was used, they couldn't have agreed to a warranty on a used part. It's like trying to buy insurance on a house that's already on fire.
That's a perfect analogy. And this whole situation really shows how important it is to have everything documented in writing.
Right. It protects both sides.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Imagine if City Garage had just been upfront about the used alternator, got the customer's okay in writing, and laid out all the warranty terms for that used part. They could have dodged this whole mess. Maybe even avoided a legal battle with the state.
You know, it makes you think how many other people might have run into similar issues with this place because of their lack of transparency.
Yeah, it's hard to say for sure, but it definitely raises some red flags. That's why we do these deep dives, though, to give our listeners the knowledge they need to protect themselves.
So what can our listeners do to avoid ending up in a situation like this? We've talked about getting a second opinion, but
Yeah.
is there anything else? Should everyone be calling their state government every time they get an oil change?
Whoa there, hold your horses. Contacting your state's Consumer Protection Agency is a good idea if you think something really shady is going on. But there are some things you can do before you even hand over your car keys.
Okay, I'm listening. Prevention is always the best medicine.
Right. Right on. First things first, don't just pick any mechanic you find online. Do your homework. Check out reviews, see if they have a website with info about their certifications, and ask around. Maybe friends or family have recommendations. Word of mouth is gold when it comes to finding a trustworthy mechanic.
Yeah, reputation is everything. You don't want to trust just anyone with your car.
Absolutely. And here's a little pro tip. Pay attention to how the mechanic talks to you. Do they explain things clearly? Are they patient with your questions? Or do they make you feel rushed and pressured? A good mechanic should be happy to walk you through what's happening with your car, not just throw jargon at you and expect you to sign blindly.
That's a great point.
Yeah,
You want someone who treats you like a person, not a dollar sign.
exactly. It's all about building trust, and that starts with clear communication. What about when you actually get that estimate or invoice? Any red flags to watch out for there?
Yeah, are there any telltale signs that something might be fishy?
For sure. Don't be afraid to speak up. If something doesn't make sense or the price seems outrageous, ask questions. It's your money. You deserve to know exactly what you're paying for.
Right. No one should feel intimidated to question a mechanic about their own car.
Yeah.
So let's say you're looking at an invoice and it says they replaced your alternator. How can you tell if they used a new part or a sneaky used one?
That's where knowing a little bit of car lingo comes in handy. If they used a brand new original equipment manufacturer part or OEM part, it should be clear on the invoice. They might even list the part number. And if it was a remanufactured or aftermarket part, that should also be clearly stated. And of course, if they used a used part, they have to tell you up front and get your consent.
So if the invoice is vague or doesn't specify the type of part, that's a red flag.
Bingo. And remember that warranty. Make sure it's clearly written on the invoice what it covers, how long it lasts, and what to do if you need to use it. Don't be shy about asking for a copy of the warranty for the specific parts they use.
It sounds like being informed is super important when it comes to car repairs. Like you really have to be your own advocate.
You got it. And it's not just about knowing the right questions to ask, it's also being ready to push back if something feels off. You know, like that customer in the City Garage case.
Yeah, they didn't just complain to their friends.
No way. They took action, filed that Better Business Bureau complaint, and even contacted the state of Florida. That's what got the investigation going.
They knew their rights and they weren't afraid to use them.
Exactly. It's a good lesson for all of us. It shows how important those consumer protection agencies can be. They help keep things fair and hold businesses accountable.
So let's say someone listening is in a similar situation. Their car is acting up, they take it to a mechanic, but something just feels wrong. Maybe the diagnosis seems off or the price is through the roof. What should they do first?
Documentation is key. Write down everything. Copies of estimates, invoices, any conversations with the shop, even take pictures if you need to.
So basically create a paper trail, just in case.
You got it. That way, if you need to file a complaint later, you've got the proof.
Got it. Receipts are your friends, people. Don't just toss them in the glove box. But what if you're still unsure if you're being treated fairly? We talked about a second opinion from another mechanic, but are there other resources out there?
Definitely. Depending on where you live, there might be local consumer groups that focus on car issues. You can also check out websites like the Better Business Bureau or the Federal Trade Commission. They've got tons of info on your rights and how to file complaints.
So the internet can actually be helpful in this case,
Yeah.
not just for funny cat videos.
Exactly. And don't forget about your local library. They often have access to legal databases and consumer guides that can give you even more specific information.
Wow, this has been really eye-opening. I think we've all learned a lot about how to be more informed and proactive with car repairs. It's easy to just trust the mechanic, but this city garage case shows why that's not always a good idea.
I agree. It's your car, your money, and your safety on the line. So do your homework, know your rights, and don't be afraid to ask questions and stand up for yourself.
And remember, if you ever feel like you've been treated unfairly, you're not alone. There are resources and agencies out there to help.
That's right. Don't be afraid to reach out.
Well, this has been a wild ride.
Yeah.
It just goes to show that even something as routine as a car repair can turn into a legal drama.
You never know what you're going to find when you start digging.
Exactly. That's why we do these deep dives. We want to arm our listeners with the knowledge they need to navigate the world and avoid getting taken advantage of.
Knowledge is power, my friend.
So to all our listeners out there, stay informed, stay vigilant, and don't let anyone pull a fast one on you. And if you've got any stories of your own about shady mechanics or any tips for finding a trustworthy one, we want to hear them. Share your experiences. Help each other out, and let's keep the conversation going.
That's what it's all about.
Until next time, stay safe out there and keep those engines running smoothly.